So we're here with Jarrod Spector, who is playing the lead of Frankie Valli in Jersey Boys.
True.
Uh, for a short time, he is currently scheduled to leave the production.
Yes.
But as of right now, he is playing the role.
Still here.
Still here.
Yeah.
What? When did you first decide you wanted to become an actor, and where did you go to school for it?
I don't think I decided to become an actor, to be honest. I was my parents took me to voice lessons when I was like 2.5 years old because they sort of discovered through me singing along with radio commercials and others, whatever was played about the house. They discovered that I could sing, so they took me to a voice coach, and soon enough I was on TV singing, and and then a few years later I did Star Search, the old epic band Star Search, and my first real acting job was playing Gavroche on Les Miserables, and that was when I was 9. But as you can imagine, when you're a kid, most of those decisions aren't made. I didn't wake up one day and say, "Mom, please, I would love to go to this cattle call for Les Miserables." But I guess I had a certain proclivity for it, so I didn't fight it too hard. But I didn't particularly go to school for acting until I was 22. I went to a high school that had a decent enough performing arts section, but it wasn't like performing arts high school. I mean, we had some classes, and we had shows that we did, extracurricular stuff, but it wasn't a performing arts high school. But I did take singing lessons and such as I was growing up, and piano and guitar to a certain extent. And then when I was 15 or 16, I sort of quit the business because I had an NBC sitcom pilot that was supposed to be this, it was supposed to sort of change my life. It was the producer of Mad About You, writers from Friends, and it was, and Danny Jacobs, Peter Boyle from Everybody Loves Raymond and Young Frankenstein was in it. It was supposed to be amazing, and it didn't work out, and I was sort of crushed. So I decided I didn't want to do that anymore. Then I got back into acting when I was 20 years old, when I dropped out of Princeton University, where I was studying economics and finance and Chinese. And then I moved to New York, the city I had been terrified of as a kid, even though I had been on Broadway. I just found it to be overwhelming. But as a 20-year-old, living down in Chinatown with my two best friends, it was pretty cool. So then I stayed, and I went to the Atlantic Theater Company Conservatory for 2.5 years, and I sort of credit that as my real acting training.
And what was your first role post conservatory?
I played Hamlet in a production of Hamlet downtown right after graduating from Atlantic.
Do you enjoy doing the Shakespeare stuff? Do you enjoy this more?
Yeah, I mean, when I was at Atlantic is it's a great school, and I think it's a very good program for young aspiring actors, and it's definitely it's part of Tisch. So if you're in Tisch, the way that works, if you're in NYU, you go to Adler or Strasberg or Atlantic, and Atlantic I think is great. But like any other New York conservatory program that isn't geared towards musical theater, I came out of there being like, I'm only going to do Shakespeare, Chekhov, Shaw, Ibsen. Those are it. I'm not doing it. And of course, I was cast in Jersey Boys like 3 months later. But yeah, I love classic, and I love straight plays. And ideally, I would do a good amount of that. But thankfully, I've been gainfully employed as Frankie for almost 6 years now. So
that really sure.
What the hell was that sound? I was going to close this, but
It's probably your co-star swearing. Oh, they're doing a rent.
They're doing Rent. Oh, God, shut up. Okay.
That will edit out. So now, since you were obviously interested in doing the serious stuff, what drew you to this show, and what was it? The singing, since you were so interested in singing prior to you quitting acting?
I'm like any actor, especially one who at that point hadn't worked in a while and was sort of essentially starting from scratch. You take what you get. I didn't seek out Jersey Boys. My manager at the time called me with an audition. It happened to be for Jersey Boys. I didn't know what Jersey Boys was. I had when she told me it was a Frankie Valli show, my first thought was, who is Frankie Valli? I mean, I knew that name, but I didn't know everything about him. I certainly didn't know. I knew every song, but I didn't know it was his song catalog, and I didn't know as much about the Four Seasons as I maybe ought to have. Um, but once I read the script and learned more about the show and learned more about the seasons and Frankie himself, I became obviously intrigued. It's a fantastic show. So, but yeah, it wasn't anything in particular that drew me to it in the first place. I didn't seek it out. I took an audition because it came my way, and having just sworn off musical theater and said I'm only going to do class, of course that doesn't work out that way, and you can't be it's not realistic. I think it's not realistic as an actor. If you have if you have multiple skills, use them, because frankly, the more shit you throw up against the wall, the better chance that something sticks. So when something comes along and it's singing heavy and you can sing, then do it. So, I didn't think that I could necessarily sing the falsetto at first, but I tried, and they helped me and believed in me, and I kept working at it and got to do what they wanted me to do.
And speaking of singing the falsetto, how do you keep your voice in tip-top shape singing that score every night?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, like anything else, you get on stage and there's a certain amount of muscle memory that takes over, so things do become slightly easier in that you don't have to think so hard about them. The dancing becomes second nature. The going through the physical motion of the show, knowing where to go when, which is really actually very intricate, because Frankie's on stage for an hour and 55 minutes, running in and out, backstage, on stage, off stage, and doing quick changes, so it's a lot to sort of master. That gets easier, at least insofar as you don't have to think about it consciously. The keeping your voice in shape really does not become easier. It's second nature to know that, okay, I can't smoke, I can't drink coffee, I can't eat and then go to sleep because I'll wake up with acid reflux. I have to do my 30-minute warm-up about an hour and a half before the show. I have to do my 15-20-minute warm-down after the show ends. It's second nature to know all those things, but it doesn't make it any easier to do them and to live by them. And, for a while in the middle there, I was so happy to do it, and, then you see, like any person, you become slightly resentful that, man, it's Wednesday morning, it's 11, and man, I want a cup of coffee so bad. And you can. Sometimes you cheat and maybe you suffer a little bit in your performance. Maybe some people are stronger than others. Some people are just built differently. I sort of push the limits of what I can and can't do, and yet still be able to sing the show. But I think it just takes so much discipline and exercise, making sure that you're in shape. The better your air is, the better support you have, the stronger your body is, the better your voice is going to be.
After 6 years, you're moving on. Is there some role that you're specifically looking to tackle next?
There is a role that I was asked to do in a show that was supposed to happen this summer. It has now been delayed. So, to be perfectly honest, I'm now leaving the show. I'm leaving Jersey Boys for a 3-month hiatus. I may or may not be back in the fall. That's sort of up in the air. I would love to come back if they want me, and if everything works out both ways, I would come back. But there is a role in a show, and hopefully it happens as they tell me now, that it's scheduled for some time after the new year. In the meantime, there are a million roles I would love to play, and especially while I'm out of work, and potentially, and even if I am scheduled to come back, if I have opportunities to look at other things, I'm going to do that.
And what do you plan on doing during your hiatus? Are you going to relax? Are you going to?
I'm not going to relax.
No relaxing?
No, I have shows that I'm working on. I do my own solo concerts, and I've had a show that I've been doing for the last year and a half or so, but I'm developing a new show that I'm going to be doing at Feinstein's at the Regency, either in September or November probably.
Okay.
And I've got another show that I work with these guys, a bunch of Jersey Boys actually, called the Doo-Wop Project. And so we have a bunch of concerts, and we're putting together our full show. And I have another show that I'm working on with some friends that's Burt Bacharach.
Sounds like you're going to be relaxing.
I'm not going to be relaxing. I'm trying to make myself work as hard as I can. It's hard when I'm in Jersey Boys because there's so much singing. It is hard to do extracurricular stuff.
Absolutely.
Just because there's how much more singing can I possibly do? But I do it anyway. But it's taxing. When I'm not singing 27 songs at my highest peak falsetto 6 times a week, it's a little easier to do other projects. So I'm going to try to take advantage of the time off.
Now, what advice would you give to people who are just starting out in the business, whether they're coming here to New York to start out, or whether they're just, staying where they're from, trying to make it work in regional theater?
Well, if you can commit to only doing regional theater, by all means stay where you are if you're successful. I mean, if you live in Chicago or in San Francisco or another area that is pretty good with regional theater, and you're successful and you're happy to make it not necessarily your primary means of income, because it's difficult to do that. Really, the pay just oftentimes isn't good enough. If you want to do that, great, stay. I think if you're trying to sort of make it, so to speak, you have to be in New York or Los Angeles. Just my opinion, and I don't think that I'm alone in making that opinion. I'll be honest. When people ask me, especially parents, they say, "Oh, my kid wants to such and such," or kids come to the stage door, especially teenagers. "Oh, I want to be an actor. What do you say?" My first piece of advice is, if you can think and really think about this, if there's anything else in the world that you can imagine doing, do that. Really, truly, because it's not, I'm not exaggerating, it's not a euphemism when I tell you how difficult it is to find work and consistently work. The job of an actor isn't even the craft, so to speak, and that word is sort of borderline nauseating anyway, but it's not even it really, because most people, especially if you're in theater, Broadway shows don't last that long, most of them anyway, so your job is to audition, which is easily the most hated part of being an actor for any young actor or most experienced actors. Auditioning is hard. A really good actor books, what, 1 out of 30, 40, 50 auditions that they actually go in on. So if you have if you have good representation, you go out a couple times a week, 3 times a week, you're talking about maybe once every 4, 5, 6 months you book something. That is a lot of rejection. And I'm not a jaded actor who's been beaten up who's telling this. I'm actually a guy who's been in a show for 6 years, and I'm sitting here the first one to say it is really hard. And if you can think of anything else, please by all means do it. If not, then work harder than anybody else works. Work harder than anybody else works, be creative, find ways to create your own work, find ways to do your own thing and to make yourself happy. Find ways to make yourself happy while you're struggling, while things don't work out for you. Do all those things, and don't cast yourself out. I mean, be realistic about who you are, but don't type yourself out of anything. Try everything, because there's a million casting directors ready and willing to tell you, no, you're not right for this, sorry, you're not good enough for this. So don't do it to yourself. Be positive. Think that you can do everything within reason. You also don't want to set yourself up for more rejection than you're already going to experience. I mean, look, so unless you're, and like you asked me before, did I find Jersey Boys? No, because unless you're Brad Pitt or or one of these these TV or film stars who come to Broadway and say, oh, I want to do that role, you take what you get. I mean, for the most part, of course, you want to say, I'm only going to do good work. I'm only going to do good work, and you hope that that's always the case, that you're able to only choose good work, only choose roles that you believe in. But if you've been unemployed for 6 or 7 months, you very well may take a job that you don't think is the best because you have bills to pay, or you have a mortgage, or if you have kids, or whatever it is. It's such a difficult life, and I'm one of the lucky ones who has been, employed in this amazing blockbuster mega hit for all these years. And looking into the future of what life is like after Jersey Boys, it's hard.
Well, I appreciate your candor.
Sure,
And
I know I'm not like brimming. The upside, if I may say, just
absolutely.
The upside is amazing. There is not. Look, I don't care how successful you are in your job. You might be an executive. Nobody is applauding you at the end of the day. And every day that we finish our job here, 1,200 people stand and applaud. I mean, there's just nothing quite like that. And that's not the reason to do the job. But when you're having a crap day, it doesn't hurt.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Great
sure.
interview. I really appreciate it.
Oh, of course. Thank you for coming.